What was a house rule you had as a kid that you thought was completely normal until you grew up and realized not all households followed?
My mom used to pay me to be my own babysitter between the ages of 10-14 or so. The rule was that as long as I didn't make a mess and I'd put myself to bed by the time she got home, then I got $10 in the morning.
When I was really young I had a night bell. It was this old clay bell that hung in the kitchen, and when I had to go to bed I got to ring the bell and everyone would come say goodnight and then I would go to bed. Not really a rule, but a weird little ritual in our house.
My family had a thing we called the food blanket. When we'd eat casual meals, we'd lay a blanket on the living room floor and eat on it, like a picnic. My parents didn't want to get any food on the carpet. Instead of set the table, my mom would say, "Go lay out the blanket." I remember being really confused when I learned every family didn't have a food blanket.
Maybe it's not a house rule. But when I was 6 my mom told me that if I behaved she would let me skip school on Saturdays and Sundays. One day my teacher said see you Monday and I knew.
We weren't allowed to watch anything remotely sexual, like if people were kissing on screen my mom would freak out and run to cover the TV with a pillow and go blub blah cough loudly until it was over. Once I tried to see a PG-13 movie with my friends and my mom cried and my dad called me horrible for making her cry. I was 14.
We weren't allowed to get into the fridge or the cabinets without asking permission. My family was very poor and we had a limited food budget, so eating something without permission very possibly meant eating one ingredient of a meal my stepmother was planning on cooking within the next few days. I went to friends' houses and they just ate whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted.
We weren't allowed to walk in our dining room unless we were using the room for a special occasion. The carpet always had that just vacuumed look, so it was a dead giveaway if anyone walked across it.
If you don't get A's you don't eat at the table. I legit thought this was normal until I had dinner at a friend's house and my friend brought home a devastating report card. His parents were so supportive and loving. Edit, I'm not Asian you guys.
I wasn't allowed to take a shower if I was home alone. I also learned at age 7 that other households closed the bathroom door when using the toilet and keeping it open was weird. I learned that by keeping the door open at a friend's house, a friend walked by the bathroom, saw me, told their mom called my mom, and all of a sudden the new house rule was we close the bathroom door when using the toilet.
Not a rule, but still to this day I am befuddled at my mother's reasoning. When I was a boy we lived in a pretty rural part of Mexico, horrible infrastructure. Power would often go out in the middle of the night. She would proceed to wake my brother and I up, simply to wait until the power came back on. For the life of me I cannot figure that out. She wasn't afraid of the dark, she just wanted to make sure we saw the power return.
No curfew as long as I told my mom where I would be. I was always honest BCS. I loved being 16 with no curfew.
When I got in trouble I was put on reading restriction as a punishment. I loved to read as a kid, still do, so it was an effective punishment at the time.
Not being allowed to leave the table until your meal was finished. I remember eating at a friend's house and looking really uncomfortable trying to finish a food I didn't like, only to be told, you don't have to finish it if you don't want to. Mind-blowing.
Wasn't in my home, but my aunt and uncle never let us use the upstairs washroom when we were kids because they thought we touched the walls with our dirty hands, so they made us piss in a jar they kept under the kitchen sink and just poured it down the drain when we were done. Never thought it was strange until I brought it up to my cousin a few years ago. We laughed pretty hard about it.
If you couldn't find something, and you asked someone for help, sibling or parent, and they found it for you, they got to punch you in the arm.
My mom freaks out about hearing commercials on TV. The second it goes to commercial break it has to be muted. She also mutes it if she thinks it's about to go to commercial, even though sometimes she's wrong. And she doesn't really pay attention, so she doesn't notice a lot of the time when the commercials are over, so she leaves it on mute when the show is back on. It's very difficult to watch TV with her. Bare skin was not allowed to touch the leather sofa. No shorts, bare feet, tank tops, etc. Also we had to peel mushrooms. It took forever and was completely stupid. Answering the door with a gun is not what all houses did. We have a wooden largemouth bass in our house now, and as an ode to that my wife and I answer the door with it every time and tell the kids to get the doorfish before answering to mess with them. One day they'll have a perfect response to a question like this. Edit, wow, thanks for the gold, kind stranger. Edit 2, wow, 2 golds and 2 silvers. Edit 3, I'd kiff anyone went through my comment history, but I'm basically the world's greatest troll. Keep that in mind.
Any of the kids, 7 of us, can play with any toy that is left out. The owner of the toy can't take it back until whoever's playing with it is done. If the toy is put away in the owner's room, permission must be asked.
My sister and I had to read for 30 minutes after school. My parents weren't even home, but we would tattle on each other. Another rule was, I couldn't tell anyone when a certain uncle was staying with us because he was dodging an arrest warrant. Edit, this is my most popular post. To clear a few things up, my uncle isn't a pedophile or a violent offender. He's an addict and a thief. Also, my sister and I weren't taught to snitch on each other, we were just enemies. Looking back, we could have gotten away with a lot if we'd teamed up. Edit 2, my first coins. Thank you, kind stranger.
When I was sick I couldn't be in my bed because it would make it dirty. My mom put a towel in a corner on the hardwood floor and I had to stay there until she d-ed me better enough to use my bed.
First thing upon coming in the house you have to change into clean pants and wash your hands. Guests were exempt from the pants rule but not hand washing. If you took your shoes off while you were out you had to change your socks as well.
Tape half the house off in winter.
I was not allowed to clear my plate when eating. I had to always leave some food on the plate. If I wanted to eat that much, I had to go get a little more to leave on the plate. The exact opposite of what most people have as a household rule. Edit, for those confused, I clarify in comments below. I super enjoyed all the new cultural knowledge. I'm going to bed. Smile. My parents used a laissez-faire parenting style. No censorship whatsoever. I watched Rocky Horror Picture Show with my brother when I was 7. Pretty awkward when I brought the VHS with me to a sleepover at a friend's house. The parents were mortified. Leave the porch light on until everyone is home. After I moved out and lived with my boyfriend, I remember getting angry with him for not leaving the porch light on when he knew I would be home late. His response was pretty much, but you didn't ask me to. Don't eat the last of something without first asking if anyone else wants any. Same boyfriend, poor guy, ate the last of the cookies. I was so mad that he didn't ask if I wanted any. This was the first time either of us lived away from our parents, so we had a lot of weight. Your family doesn't do this? Conversations.
My dad made a rule that I had to kill 7 flies a day during my summer break.
If I told my parents I was leaving at a certain time, I had to leave at that time. Let's say I told my parents I would leave a party at 9. I couldn't leave at 8:50, or I'd get yelled at, grounded. I couldn't leave at 9:10, or I would get yelled, grounded. Same thing went for when I was leaving my house to go somewhere.
Our bedtime in high school was 9 p.m. We weren't allowed to eat any food past 7 p.m. No television before 5 or after 8. And dinner is at 6.
No singing at the table, unless it's a birthday. Still to this day I don't cope well with quiet, but I guess when I was a kid the karaoke party never stopped. It was a good rule, but not necessary for most households.
Not being allowed to hang out with girls, at all. Edit, I am in fact a male. Edit again, thank you for all the upvotes.
Was literally told by my best friend's dad I was only allowed to eat popcorn 1 kernel at a time.
I grew up with 6 siblings. In the TV room, there were more people than couch seats. We had a rule that you couldn't steal someone's seat if they got up to go to the bathroom, get a drink, etc. My parents instituted it because of all the fights that would happen over seats. We all instantly realized how great a rule it was. No more arguments, but more importantly, your seat was safe for the night. I never thought it was a normal rule as defined by the OP, but it is a great rule that every family should have.
No going places on my own. It's not a rule, but I get in trouble for going places and I'm never given permission to go anywhere. Turns out all my friends can be just about anywhere and I'm stuck saying can't, man. My mom said no.
No swearing, which includes the obvious as well as stupid, idiot, shut up and fart.
We had to have milk after dinner, but before bed. Asked my mom when I was older what that was about and she realized we could have just had milk with dinner if we wanted, but she had been raised kosher so it wasn't something she thought about. Eating dinner as a family, at the table. I met so many people in college who thought that whole idea was absurd.
Vegetables, a little or a lot? That was my mom's response when I didn't want to eat them.
Not my rule, but this happened during a play date. I had my daughter, 3, at a friend's place, also 3, and my daughter asked for a hug and her friend said no thank you very politely. Then her mom shot across the room and started screaming at her daughter, "You don't do that. If someone wants a hug, it's mean to say no." While my daughter's friend was crying and apologizing. I tried to explain that it's fine and I'm teaching my daughter, okay, do you want to give a hug, high five, or wave? To show her about consent early, so I really don't mind and my daughter understands. But I never heard reasoning behind that strict rule.
No soda. I didn't drink soda unless I was at a friend's because that was normally all they had. My parents were super healthy people, so they mostly drank water, juice, tea, and lemonade.
Children are not allowed to speak unless spoken to. I come from an abusive household and one day my neighbors came by to visit and I was in the dining room finishing my homework. My stepfather at the time was entertaining our guests when I had decided to enter the living room to grab extra pencils for my homework. The neighbors were about to head back home when I said, "Thank you for coming, it was nice having you today." My stepfather rose from the sofa, grabbed his drink and threw against the wall behind me. Children are meant to be seen and not heard. Speak when you are spoken to, and aggressively grabbed me by the arm and dragged me into the hallway out of sight. My neighbors the next day asked me if I was okay, and at the time I didn't really understand why, and I thought this was normal all the way up until my junior year of high school. To this day I don't speak unless someone is talking to me directly.
Keep bread in the freezer. Apparently not a lot of people do that.
No romantic relationships until you're 18. In my case, it seems that it will go on even further. F.
Don't touch the walls.
Lid down before you flush. I thought it was weird as a kid, but I understand it now. Little bits of whatever's in the bowl aerosolizes when you flush. If the lid is down, it's less gross than a training poo germs on your toothbrush. As a kid, my family was the only household I was ever in where the toilet lids were down. I have recently imparted this rule on my son with regard to my apartment. He always puts down the seat, very kind of him to begin with, but now he puts down the lid too. I love him, but his poo germs can stay off my toothbrush. Editing to link A. Study https://www.journalofhospitalinfection.com/article/SO1956701% 2811% 29003392/full text, about bacterial spread with lid up versus down. I'm glad you all like Mythbusters as much as me, but this is also worth a read.
Not so much a rule as a tradition. When Dad got home from work, he would immediately change into PJs, and that was our time to do the same if desired. Watching TV shows where someone would drop in by surprise, and the parents would just welcome them in, seemed like some Hollywood BS to me, like the mother who never left the kitchen.
Not being allowed to lock my bedroom door. Even if I was changing or just got out of the shower.
My dad always tells me not to lock any doors in the house, including my room door and the bathroom door.
I couldn't add the jokes in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer song. My dad thought it was disrespectful. It's not really a house rule, it's just a really odd one. Also, when a parent says your name you have to reply coming not yeah, because they'll ignore it.
When riding in the car at night it is illegal to have the interior dome light on. I genuinely believed that was true until I was about 28 years old.
My mom gave me a kitchen timer to use whenever I used the computer. 1 hour of games per week for little kid me. Wasn't until much later that I realized plenty of my friends were given much more freedom to play whatever they wanted whenever they wanted, and I resented my parents for it. Wasn't until much later than that I realized the timer probably kept me in school because young me would have gamed my entire education away. I was allowed, and encouraged, to call all adults by their first names, the only exceptions being my teachers. It fucking blew my mind when I was like 10 and started going to a snooty new school when my mom pulled me aside and told me I had to start calling people Mr., last name /, or Mrs., last name /. Even now, 20+ years later, saying Mr. or Mrs. to anyone who isn't a teacher feels really fucking weird.
I had to wash the dishes every night, even if I wasn't home for the meal. There were times I'd get gone from an away basketball game, I was in the team, after 10 p.m. and the dishes had sat since they finished reading around 6:30 p.m., my older brother's nightly chore? Take out the garbage. He'd be done in 2 minutes. I'd have 30+ minutes of washing, drying, putting away, and cleaning up the kitchen.
I wasn't allowed to play in the living room as a child. If I played too loud in my room I was also whooped. My dad's golden rule was children are meant to be seen, not heard. As a result, I allow my children to play anywhere in the house, as loudly as they want, as long as they clean it up. Just the other day my son held a rock concert in the living room with his new toy guitar and amplifier. The music was terrible, but his smile made it worth it.
I wasn't allowed in my parents' room, at all. Not even to use their shower if the hall bath was occupied and we were going to be late.
My dad used to set up mine and my sister's Easter egg hunts in such a way we followed written clues from place to place, as way to help us learn to read. Until I was a young adult, I assumed that was how all kids did Easter egg hunts.